Welcome everyone to the 2020 AGM. I'm going to share my screen with you folks so we can look at the agenda for today. So our agenda is that we will approve the agenda. The minutes of last year's meeting were circulated this morning. I apologize for that. I thought I had pre-circulated them earlier, but they had not. The appointment of the auditor for 2021 will also happen at this point. The reports, they were pre-circulated on the 27th or 24th, whatever, 27th, I believe, and certainly on December 1st as well. All the reports were pre-circulated for you to read through and prepare any questions you may have about any of them. The two that some of you or most of you will probably be wondering about is the auditor report and treasurer report. Greg will address those in just a bit, and we'll explain why they were not pre-circulated. But they will be included, they will be circulated following this meeting, and they will be included in the January, February Nova notes as well. So not to worry about that. Following the reports and the approval of the reports will be the nominating committee report of the board approved appointments, as well as nominations and elections to the board of directors, after which we will adjourn. Our hope is that this process for the AGM this year will only take half an hour or less. We're trying to shorten the time frame. So the reports will not be read this year. They are, you should have read them ahead of time in essence. So going back, approval of the 2020 agenda. Oh, I guess I have to do, I forgot to do a poll. Let's see here. How can I, all right, so I need approval for the agenda, 2020 agenda. Somebody speak up and identify yourself.
That would be me. I'd move to approve it. Blair McDonald.
Okay, and a second.
Joanne Cook, seconded.
All right, I'm just typing this up, folks, and then I'm going to send it out as a poll, and then you get 30 seconds to vote. Just give me a moment here. Joanne Cook. All in favor. And you're going to have a choice of yes, no, and abstain. And we're going to have this as anonymous, so save and launch. So you've got 30 seconds, folks. Can you all see it? Obviously you can, because people are voting.
Should be playing game show music in the background, Judy.
I should. Okay, so it's approved unanimously. Thank you, folks. Okay, now the minutes that had been pre-circulated, we do need approval for the minutes as well. Any questions regarding the minutes before we go to, I don't want that one, I want a new one.
Were those minutes that were sent out, were they after all of Pat's changes?
I'm sorry?
The minutes you're asking for approval, were they before or after Pat's corrections?
They were from a year ago, Paul.
Oh, last year's AGM. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they've already been corrected. Yeah. Okay.
As far as I know, yeah, because it's version 3 that was pre-circulated. So, all right. Now this is where I am going to get lost. I know I am. All right. So I guess I need somebody to move the approval of the.
I'll move approval of the minutes.
That was Mary Lou,
I'll second.
Paul Heath.
Yeah.
Um, 151 minutes. Oops. Type faster, I would, trust me. Okay, so then all in favor. Again, the yes, the no, and the abstain. And okay, why didn't it go through?
You saved it instead of sending it.
Well, you have to save it and then it says to share results, but I don't want to share results. Oh, here we go. Poll 2. I apologize for this.
We'll just play Zoom bingo.
I was doing this for the BNS AGM, and I think there's a way to take a question you've already done and just edit it and then just send it out a second time.
Obviously, I'm going to have to because it's not. All right.
Hit the edit button there.
Yeah, well, I don't need to edit it. I want. Oh, see, it doesn't allow me to set.
Anonymous.
But it still doesn't allow me to send.
Do you need to give it a title?
Title, maybe?
It automatically titles it as poll 2, I think.
Don't know that that'll change anything. It still doesn't allow me to send. So if I save it, usually it allows you to send, and it's not letting me do that.
Did you clear the other one?
Yeah, the other one needs to be stopped, Judy.
Delete.
Yep, delete it.
All right, then I'll do this then. Whoop, sorry, poll.
How about a show of hands?
Yeah, I think I'm going to have to do that, given everything. But my problem is I can't see everybody's hands, so that.
Oh,
Who's secretary?
we don't have one.
Do it by voice.
We can
but
just
Option.
stand down. If you want to do it with
can we
show
go
of hands.
backwards? Are there any abstentions? Are there any nays? So given there are no nays and no abstentions, I will assume that it is unanimously approved.
Isn't deduction great?
Yeah, it is. Okay. Greg, next up is the appointment of the auditor. Would you like to address that on our behalf?
Well, I've spoken with the auditor from this year, Ian Anderson, and he's willing to continue as auditor for next year. So I would put forward a motion to appoint Ian Anderson as the auditor for 2020, 2021.
All right, we'll go backwards again. Any abstentions?
Well, I'll second the motion. I don't think you had a
Oh, yeah,
second.
that's right. That was Dave.
Yeah.
As in Lane.
Yes.
Okay. Oh, excuse me.
You didn't want the job?
If I didn't want the job, I would have moved the motion.
You say that now when you're safe.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so even if
Motion hasn't passed yet.
and seconded by Dave Lane, are there any nays to that particular motion to approve Ian Anderson as the auditor for 2020, 2021? Any nays? Okay. Approved. Thank you, folks. Okay, now the reports were pre-circulated. And I apologize to Paul Gray. I did not include the VP report because I thought he was just making comment. And I did not include his comment. If he wants to make it here, he can, and we will include it in the full report. But otherwise, are there questions regarding the other reports? And
Judy, how did you actually distribute these? Because I have no, I don't went through all my emails. I didn't see anything.
They were sent along with the agenda. They were attached to the agenda for the AGM.
Recent.
December 1st, it was sent out in the morning around 10 o'clock in the morning. And
Okay, thanks. I'll go check that.
It says the reminder of AGM and other news or something like that was the topic title. And all the reports were attached to it. It was included as one solid document.
It came in at 7:09 in the morning at my end.
Did it? All right. Maybe I sent it earlier than I thought. Okay. Any questions regarding any of them?
Okay, I see it now.
I will move approval of all of the reports as they were circulated in the email, so that we can just have one motion that does the whole deal, and then we can look at the ones that weren't circulated as individual motions.
Okay.
So I'll move approval of those executive and director reports as they were submitted by email.
Thanks, Mary
I'll
Lou.
second
Second.
Can I make my comment at some point, or?
after
Sure,
the
now
second.
it's, yeah, we're going to discuss it now because we got a motion, so you can discuss.
Sorry, I didn't catch who seconded it.
Joanne?
Oh, all right. Sorry, I saw Bob's hand before I heard your voice, Joanne. Is that all right?
I will defer to Bob.
Okay. All right. Now discussion. And Dave, you wanted to make comment?
Yes. Can people see me okay?
Yep.
All right. So you can read my report. I just wanted to make one comment. We've done very well this year on observing. And I just wanted to say, I guess, how proud I am of the center for all of the observing programs that have been followed this year and the certificates that have been earned. I've actually lost count. We added someone this morning. I haven't publicly announced it, but Troy Sweeney wrote to me yesterday and sent in his Explore the Universe stuff. And I, this morning, with the power invested in me as the observing chair, I awarded him the certificate and pin for the Explore the Universe. So I think we have 8 certificates from the Halifax Center this year. Many of the, if not all of the people who earned those certificates are online now. Troy couldn't make it. I just want to say how proud I am of everybody's achievements, because we account for something like 25% of all of the observing certificates earned across Canada this year. And for a medium-sized center that only represents about 1/15 of the population of the RASC, that's an amazing achievement. And I'm just going to say it a third time, I'm proud of everybody for doing that. And I get emails from people on the observing committee saying, how do you guys do that? And I said, I don't know, but it's just the kind of center we are. And so that's all I want to say. Thank you.
Thanks, Dave.
I might comment, Dave, I think it's on your shoulders. I think we should compliment you on your work. But thank you.
Well, shoulders of giants, eh? You know, it's the people that came before and showed the way, right? It's just our culture. And thank you for the shout out. But you know, that's just the way we do things here, and we have a tradition of it. So, thank you.
I think you just answered your question, David.
Yeah, very much so. And I think it not only goes to Dave, but I think to every member of the center. I find our center is very welcoming, encouraging, and at any opportunity we get to promote any of the observing programs, we do it. And I think that's one of the reasons why our observing chair is so successful, is because we help him in promoting all of this. So thank you, Dave. Okay, so we have a motion to approve the reports that were circulated in the email by Mary Lou Whitehorn and seconded by Bob Russell. All in favor, or actually, let's go backwards again. Any abstentions?
I'm gonna have to abstain.
Okay. Any nays? So I'll assume that other than the one abstention, it's approved. Okay, thank you. So from there, the piece of the puzzle that's missing from the reports, as you're aware, is the financial report and the auditor's report. And for that, I'll hand it over to Greg Dill. So Greg, you can share your screen when you're ready.
Okay. Thank you, Judy. Just to start off with, I've worked with Ian Anderson, and as Dave Lang can contest, and it's a deja vu that this is an unbalanced financial report. I think that basically the numbers are there, and they won't change very much when all's said and done. Excuse me. But I just thought I'd highlight some of the numbers on the income statement and then on the balance sheet later. And I'd just like to point out that the $3,026 for membership fees. It seems interesting to me that although our numbers of members, I believe, are down at the end of the year from 170 last year to 163 this year, nevertheless, we've got slightly more as far as members paying fees. And some of that may be just the timing of when people decide to renew from year to year, that there's some inconsistencies. And then another number here is the $500 for educational activities. And that's really an in and out for a project that Dave Chapman had with Haley Davies to edit the videos that were taken during the 2015 GA and put them up, I assume, on our YouTube channel. And then I'd like to bring your attention to the sale of merchandise. We had a great increase in the sale of merchandise, and the majority of that was Explore the Universe guides that were sold. And kudos out to Tony Shelnick. He's sold more than his share of those. So thank you to Tony. And of course, Nova East, there's a negative $100 there. And the reason for that was before we realized that Nova East would be going online, there were some investments in a couple of small prizes to be given out. So that's a significant difference. Then if you go to the expenses, you'll notice that our meeting treats were significantly down, but we have now a Zoom subscription, which cost us approximately $200 to balance that off. So at least we were able to communicate, and I think that the Zoom platform has served us well for our meetings and several other observing events that several members have offered online. I just highlight the legal expenses, that there's none last year, and that's really for the registration with the Societies Act, or joint stocks. And the reason was, I believe last year, and this is probably part of the confusion with this whole thing, is that I included that in office administration. And then I just point out, as far as educational activities, again, $500 of this 832 was actually the payment to Haley, where the one up in educational activities was actually a grant that we received from RASC Special Projects Program. So if you look at it, our educational activities for all intents and purposes went down from $1,200 to $330. That's a significant drop. And if we had that more in line with what it would be if we weren't under COVID, our bottom line would be much more negative than it is. So you can see that when all said and done, we've got a loss of $318. But if you look up here at our depreciation and write-offs of $630, if you didn't include that, then as far as our activities were concerned, we would have actually made approximately $311 for the year, which is sort of interesting in a COVID year. Are there any questions on the income statement? Okay, I'll go on to the balance sheet. And I'd just like to point out in the balance sheet that our cash has increased approximately $6,000 from last year. And that is accounted for in the fact that when we started the year, we had $14,000 in GIC investments. So you take the $6,000 from investments and put it in cash. And for all intents and purposes, we're at the same place that we were at this time last year, as far as the bank account is concerned. Any questions on the balance sheet?
Dave Lane here. Can you sort of quantify the I guess the size of the imbalance that you were referring to that I guess is stopping Ian from giving you an audit report?
Well, I don't know. I guess I don't really know that. And that's why we chose not to put a comparative here between 2019 and 2020. I think it's a moving target depending on what comes forward when we do a reevaluation of the 2019 report.
Okay, so you're thinking that there may not be anything necessarily wrong with the 2020 report. There may be some.
I would.
2019 might have had some issues.
Yeah, I would say that's probably true, Dave. Just some things about how the common equity was arrived at. There were some things that I didn't understand as far as accounts payable, that if I write a check and mail it, then that is considered paid. And in 2019, I included those checks that were mailed but not cashed as accounts payable. So that may create some discrepancies, but I think that for all intents and purposes, the numbers for 2020 will change very little, if any. But it's, like you say, something coming forward from 2019.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Any more questions? Okay. I have the auditor's report, which Judy will mail out to you after the meeting or at some point in time. And just in the letter that Ian's provided, him and I discussed my accounting procedures, and I use a software program called GNU Cash to keep the books. My accounting skills at the start of this were limited. I understood I understood some things, but not in the details that I've had to since. So things have changed over the 3 years that I've been in this position and probably created some confusion. And so part of that was why this is presented as an unbalanced report. And that also goes to explain some of that there was no comparison between 2020 and 2019 offered in the balance sheet. And he says this is because we are not confident of the figures presented in the 2019 balance sheet. Guess that answers your question, Dave.
Okay, thank you.
And the other thing is that Ian hasn't seen the hard copy of the books. I printed out transaction reports for all of our accounts and our general ledger and emailed that to him along with our bank statements and the reports that we get from RASC as far as members are concerned. And there may be some documents he hasn't seen completely, but I've done everything I could, and I think he's happy with, you know, the communication that we've had. He said, just to read this, I have recommended that as the statements of 2018 and 2019 were also out of balance, the treasurer and I will correct these errors over the coming weeks and present a 3-year report, which will be published in the February 2021 Nova Notes, which is the center's official archival resource. I was negligent. I didn't realize that it was my responsibility to provide the financial reports to the Nova Notes editor in the past. And his last statement here is that changes to financial year 2020 are possible during the reconstruction of prior year's financial reports, which were never printed in Nova Notes. Therefore, these reports are presented at this time on an unaudited, unverified, and preliminary basis only. We do not expect the information for 2020 when it appears in Nova Notes will differ much from what was presented here. And so that's Ian's analysis of things. And I appreciate Ian's commitment to trying to make the most of what I presented them with, as I appreciated what Dave Lane did 2 years ago. I'm not sure if I'm learning anything, but I think I am. Is that okay with the auditor's report, Judy?
I think so. I think we're going to
Any questions?
His numbers are no different than yours. In fact, you presented, your numbers are identical, so.
Yeah, just one thing that I should really mention and make people aware of is that, in my opinion, we're not sustainable as an organization. If we had have added the approximately $700 to $1,000 to the expenses from an ordinary year of educational activities, we'd be down somewhere around $1,000, which would be consistent with the last 3 years. And in order to be sustainable, we cashed a GIC for $2,000, which we were getting into spending and basically have spent it already. So I'm concerned that without new sources of revenue, we're just going to keep mining our GICs. And I don't think that that's healthy for the organization. Thank you.
Have we raised our fees in recent years? Our center fees in?
No, we haven't. And that was something that we discussed last spring as a board, Dave. And one of the things that we determined was because of COVID and potential impact of lack of income for some of our members, we didn't want to up our fees at that point, but they would be under review on our May agenda coming up with the new board. But they could certainly be discussed earlier once we know that COVID isn't impacting us or has the potential to, it reduced impact from COVID, let's phrase it that way. But you're right, we haven't done it in years and years. Although to be perfectly honest, we are in line with about half of the centers across the country right now.
Yeah, the other factor I think is that we have a fairly high proportion of our members as life members that pay nothing.
Exactly. There's about
So-
17 or so that are, or 20 that are, or a little bit more that are life members. Yeah.
Well, if I could make a comment. I believe some time ago, the center was very concerned about having so much money in the bank and felt they needed to spend it because they didn't want the government goons coming after us for being too profitable. So the center has been a little freer with its cash in recent years than it used to be. And I believe that was the driving force behind it. So here we are. And Greg, you've done a wonderful job, and thank you very much for expressing your very legitimate concerns, because we do need to keep thinking about that always. Over time, the center goes through these ups and downs of spend and save, just like federal governments do, without the politics. But the other thing that we have discussed, Dave Lane, I don't know if you were in on the meeting, but when we were talking about yes or no, electrify St. Croix, I raised the issue of key fees because a lot of centers with observatories do the key fee thing. And that's something that we may want to consider to keep things rolling along at St. Croix without digging too big a hole in the center's general operating budget. So that's just something to think about, and maybe a little bit of perspective on the current situation. End of rant. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments regarding the financial statement and auditor's report?
I move adoption then.
I second it.
Thank you.
All right, so again, we're going to go backwards. I apologize for this. Any abstentions? Actually, before we go to that, any further discussion?
I'd like to jump in and move an amendment to say thank you to Greg for all his hard work in getting this back on track.
Thank you.
Okay, so we have the approval from, oh, sorry, first moved by Greg, seconded by Mary Lou. I will include your thank you to Greg prior to the motion. Joanne, would that be okay? Okay, so abstentions. Nays? Okay, approved. Thank you, folks. All right, so I believe I have to go back to sharing again for a moment. We then come to the part where it's the nominating committee. Oops. And there were appointments that were approved at the Board of Directors meeting last week on November 26th. As you can see, Honorary President Mary Lou continues to be so, I think until 2023, if I'm not mistaken. National Representative Pat Kelly has stepped down, and I offered to go in his stead. We have co-chairs for the Dark Sky Preserve. Dave Chapman and Tony Schelling have stepped forward for that. I'll address Nova East in a moment. Outreach, Paul Heath has reoffered. Observing Chair, Dave Chapman. Our SCO manager continues to be John Ladard. Our librarian is Wayne Harasimovich. We have co-editors coming up for Nova Notes, John McPhee and Lisa Fanning, so thank you both. Our nominating committee chair continues to be Peter Hurley, and the governance committee is me. The one I didn't address is the Nova East Planning Committee. Two things there. One is that we are certainly open to other members who would like to join the planning committee for next year, and hopefully next year, God's be willing, we'll actually be on site at Smiley's Provincial Park. The key component to the Nova East Planning Committee is not only membership, but also the chairmanship, and that is the piece that is truly required. The committee starts its work in usually in February, March. So you have the Christmas vacation to think it over if you would like to join the committee and or come in as the chair. I've been the chair or co-chair, depending upon the year, for the last 2 or 3. So if anyone would like to assume that position, would like to talk to me about it, I'm open to that. So we are really searching for Nova East Planning Committee chair and members. So thank you. So those are approved. Now we come to the election portion. Bylaw number 1 stipulates that we can have no less than 5, no more than 10 on our board of directors. We have 2 members that are stepping down this year, Tom Crosman and Paul Gray. Thank you both for your service. Tom has been a member of the board for 2 years, and Paul Gray, and I'm sorry, Paul, I don't know the number of years, but it's been numerous in various capacities on the board, including the most recent of vice president, and he was my predecessor as president. So knowing that, are there any nominations from the floor? These nominations would go for president, vice president, secretary, treasurer, and director. I will make a second call. Any nominations from the floor? Last call. Any nominations from the floor? Okay, the slate that was forwarded by the nominating committee, thanks to Peter Hurley as its chair. I will be continuing as president. Pat Kelly has stepped in as vice president. Peter and Greg will be continuing in their roles as secretary and treasurer respectively. And our directors are Matt Dyer, Wayne Harasimovich, Paul Heath, David Hoskin, and 2 new directors, Tim Doucette and Kathy Walker. Given there are no further nominations from the floor, these positions are declared elected by acclamation. So congratulations, one and all. So that's the AGM. I need a motion to adjourn from someone. Thank you, Joanne. Okay, AGM is over. Congratulations, folks.